Hey guys, in this video, I'm going to share with you the best deadlift substitution of all time. If you follow this advice, you will not be missing anything from the deadlift exercise. That is my promise from me to you. So let's break this down. First of all, a lot of people are going to claim that the deadlift is a must-do exercise because it works several muscles in the entire body. It's a great mass-building exercise. It will develop the upper back, the traps, and of course, the posterior chain. And to that, I would say you are correct. The deadlift definitely works these muscles. But you know what? Just because an exercise works a lot of muscles does not render it optimal. In fact, what you get is an exercise that does not hit one area of your body particularly hard. So it's a good strength builder, it's a good general movement to include in your program, but it's not the end-all be-all. And in fact, if we look at the sport of swimming, for example, this is an activity that involves every muscle in the entire body, yet swimmers aren't getting jacked. Swimmers are not as jacked as bodybuilders. Why? Because the muscular development is displaced throughout the entire body. And of course, swimming is of course an endurance sport. But even if you use high intensity, even if you do like very difficult drills, you're not going to get jacked from doing it because it's not just enough to work a lot of muscles. Here's what you need to understand. If you're not hitting one part of your body particularly hard, it's not optimal, period. And in the case of the deadlift, you are not maximizing the weighted stretch on your back and traps. And I would argue that for the purpose of building the posterior chain, there are other effective ways of doing this that so many bodybuilders have proved over several decades. Here's what I'm talking about. Rack pull and RDL. This combination is exactly what you need for building your entire body. If you just do the RDL and the rack pull, there's absolutely nothing that you're missing out from the deadlift. Again, that is my promise from me to you. Let's talk about the rack pull very briefly because that's kind of what I specialize on this channel. The rack pull will always be superior for the purpose of building the upper back and the traps because of the weighted stretch overload. That is non-negotiable at this point, right? The fact of the matter is that the weighted stretch is how you get yoked in the first place. It's all about pulling down on the traps and the isometric contraction, right? That is why the farmer walk exercise gets people big traps. That's why power shrugs are so effective. You're shrugging very quickly and then you're lowering the weight back down. So the weighted stretch is an essential component in gaining mass. And of course, the deadlift does do this. There is no shrugging component in the deadlift. Yes, yet it works your upper back and traps. It has to do with the weighted stretch. The difference with the rack pull is that you're using far more weight. So you can overload, and of course, you're not limited by your posterior chain strength because that's what limits you in a deadlift, right? Now look, I'm not gonna talk about this too much. Please check out my yoke playlist. I've made this point so many times, so it's very clear that the rack pull is superior for the purpose of building up back in the traps. Now that said, people are going to say, well, Alex, it is true that it's better for the upper body, like for the yoke, but what about the posterior chain, man? You're clearly going to be lagging. Well, you know what I would say? The conventional deadlift is not even the best deadlift for building the posterior chain in the first place. I would say that the RDL is superior for this purpose. Because the RDL, folks, is the only deadlift that allows you to train the weighted stretch. That's right. The RDL is a negative specific exercise. You start top, go down to the bottom. So what you're doing is you're lowering the weight back down by using your hamstrings, right? Which is, of course, you're getting the eccentric. No other deadlift allows you to do this. So you're training the eccentric and then you're getting a stretch reflex in the hamstrings. Regular deadlifts can't do that, right? So you're getting that stretch reflex effect. Everything is tight, right? The bar is about to touch the ground, but it doesn't. And then when you rebound, you really work those hamstrings and glutes. I would argue that for the sake of bodybuilding, right, for the sake of building your glutes and hamstrings, this is a much better alternative to standard deadlifts. On top of that, you can actually use high reps on these without increasing injury risk, okay? Because the RDL, you're going to use about 150 pounds less than your conventional deadlift, 150 pounds less. It's never going to be the same strength, right? So what you have essentially is a direct posterior chain builder. Right? It's not going to be the best for your upper back and traps because the weight is not heavy enough, but it will maximize the weighted stretch in your hamstrings and glutes, and it will, without a doubt, build a nice posterior chain. It'll give you nice glutes and hamstrings. That is not up for debate. So what we have is the ultimate combination. We have the two extremes. We have the rack pull, which is the extreme of building your yoke, right? It's small range of motion, it's ultimate weighted stretch. That is going to build your upper back and traps like nothing else. And then we have the opposite extreme, which is for the posterior chain, for the hamstrings and the glutes. When you combine this together, you have a system that is far superior to just doing the deadlift. Hands down. If the goal is to get jacked, if the goal is to get bigger muscles and not have any strength deficiencies or weaknesses, this is a superior choice. You're not missing anything out. If you do this for the next 50 years of your fucking life, there's nothing that you'll be missing out on. I can promise you that. You will never have to do a deadlift off the floor again in your entire life. You will be absolutely covered by rack pulls and RDLs. And anyone who argues otherwise is being a biased motherfucker. They're being biased, and people like that need to be gone from the fitness community because they're not giving you real truth. These are fucking scumbags that want you to adhere to their minimalist programming, and they don't want you to explore different modes of training. So this is the facts. If you do rack pulls and RDLs, you're covered. And then you know what? If you want to, just for the hell of it, you want to maximize your leg development even more, throw in some glute ham raises, throw in some leg curls if you want, do some reverse hypers, and of course do some squats. Like, do you really think, do you really think that you're going to be missing out if you're not doing a conventional deadlift, but instead you're doing all these variations? Really? There's nothing that you're missing out on. Guaranteed. That is just, anyone who tells you otherwise, it's just powerlifter dogma, right? The fact of the matter is that squats in themselves are actually even better than deadlifts, I would say, for building the legs. Back when I was doing a lot of squats, my legs were a little bit over 26 inches, right? Now they're 25.5 inches. Yeah, guess what? My pulls are the strongest they've ever been. My rack pulls, my deadlifts, everything is peaked out right now. Yet my legs lost about an inch in size. So squats are obviously the better solution in the first place when we talk about getting big legs, right? There's lots of guys who don't even do deadlifts. They just squat. They have massive legs. So even if we talk about the whole posterior chain argument that, oh, rack pulls don't hit the posterior chain enough, so fucking what? Deadlift is not even the best for that anyway. Squats are superior. Squats are way fucking better for building your legs, hands down. And for the glutes and hamstrings, again, RDL your way. RDL your way. It's safer, right? Much, much safer on the lower back. You're more tight. You're training the eccentric, and you can use higher reps on this exercise without the injury risk. So what are we left with? We're left with the ultimate combination, man. That's really how it is. This is some non-biased, no bullshit advice. This is how you substitute the deadlift correctly. Rack pull RDL, there's nothing that you're missing. In fact, you're getting more gains than if you were to just do the conventional deadlift. That is my guarantee from me to you. And then, of course, the accessory work, you would do accessory work nonetheless, right? If you're going to follow a properly written strength training program. So you might as well hit your leg curls for knee health. You might as well hit your glute ham raises, your reverse hypers. All these things are going to further contribute to the posterior chain. And I pretty much guarantee you're not going to have lagging problems. Your deadlift strength off the floor might not be optimal. All right, we can agree with that. Maybe this is not the best powerlifting advice, even though technically you will get stronger at your deadlift automatically. But all I'm trying to say is that you're not going to have muscular imbalances between your yoke and your posterior chain. Everything's going to be perfect, if not better, than if you were to just do deadlifts. This is from a muscular building standpoint, which a lot of you guys, that's what your goal is. It's not to compete on a stage, right, and meet. So that's it for today's video. I hope you learned a thing or two about deadlift substitutions. This is all you need for building your yoke and your posterior chain. And that's the end of the discussion, right? This is no bias. This is truth. This is fact. And with that, I'll talk to you all next time. The fact of the matter is that way to stretch is how you get jacked. Fuck, bees. Now that said, people are... The fuck is this, bro?